Good evening, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, you okay? What number are you looking for?
It's the end of the school day and the 1,500 pupils here at St Teilo's Church in Wales High School in Cardiff are heading for home. For the past 6 months, St Teilo's grounds and corridors have been largely silent, first through the coronavirus lockdown and then through the summer holidays. But now, after weeks of planning and preparation, pupils and staff are back in their classrooms, to the delight of the man in charge.
This is joyous, isn't it? This is joyous. This is how a school should sound. Excited children, people asking questions. It's absolutely fantastic. The school closure period has been so difficult, so distressing, that I am delighted that we can just crack on with things now, as they should be.
But this isn't business as usual for St Teilo's. It's a very different school that pupils and staff are returning to, with a whole host of new rules and ways of doing things. And then there's the ever-present prospect that one single case of COVID-19 could see a whole year group told to go home and stay home for a fortnight.
It's almost certain that there will be a need for partial closure. There can be, at full capacity, no guarantee of physical distancing in secondary schools. Under the current rules, if there is a positive case in school, then all of the young people who've come into contact with that positive case themselves will have to self-isolate for 14 days. So we are looking, in the vast majority of cases, at a whole year group that will need to self-isolate.
I'm Oliver Hinds. Over the last month, I've been with the staff and pupils of St Teilo's every step of the way as they navigate a return to the classroom post-lockdown. And this, the first in a new series of Eye on Wales, is my school report on the start of an academic year like no other. St Teilo's Church in Wales High School lies in the Llanedyn area of Cardiff. Most of its pupils come from the east and south of the city, but its faith-based education draws in children from far and wide. While the school is well established, its buildings are relatively new, and so too is the head teacher. Ian Lloyd stepped up from deputy head just last year. So we're into a one-way system immediately when you come in through reception.
That's exactly right. We've zoned the building, so you're currently in the visitor zone. This is where guests, parents, partners from other agencies can come, and the idea is that they don't move beyond this point. It's only staff that come beyond this point.
It's early September, and those staff are in, preparing to welcome back pupils in stages. When they do arrive for a series of induction days, the students will find that a lot has changed since lockdown on the 23rd of March.
What was my school chapel is now a meeting room. What was our sanctuary is now a meeting room. And really, we've just had to reimagine the spaces so that the school can operate as normal whilst also keeping people safe and secure.
So when it says staff only one way as you come in through the front door, pupils won't go this way, will they?
No, pupils won't come this way at all. Pupils have their own zones. They're the size of a year group, and we've established an entrance for each of those year groups. So they come in their own door, straight into their own entrance, meaning that we can minimise contacts as we go.
So this tells me now that this is the year 9 and 10 zone.
That's exactly right. So we're about to go to year 9 on the left and to year 10 on the right.
No longer will pupils move about the school from lesson to lesson. Instead, to keep mixing to a minimum, each year group will stay put in their own block while the teachers come to them. Deciding on whether pupils need to wear face coverings outside the classroom has been left to individual schools and heads. Reducing the movement of children around the school means that Ian Lloyd doesn't feel the need to make his pupils wear masks, although staff are being encouraged to do so. It's a compromise facilitated by the school's modern design.
We have this great corridor space. It's about 2.3 metres wide. The difficulty is it's the only corridor in the school. So one of the things we are seeking to avoid are large gatherings, large groups of people. And because this is the only corridor in which children can move, unfortunately it means it has to be out of bounds. So we've had to use our classrooms and our blocks to become zones for children. And instead of them moving between classrooms, they'll stay inside those zones, meaning that this corridor largely will only be used by staff.
And here we are. This is D block, I take it?
That's exactly right. We're about to enter the Year 7 zone. So this used to be where we would teach Welsh and RE. But now it's where Year 7 will receive all of their lessons instead.
And that means that Head of Welsh, Yolanda Jones, has to clear out her classroom of 7 years.
How can I help you? There's a work in progress. There's one bag outside, and it's a whole clearing of the decks. It's cleaning everything, getting everything effective and efficient for whoever's going to be teaching in here, because this used to be my classroom, but obviously I'm going to be moving around the school now.
So what's different about this classroom then? Pupils will still sit next to one another on these desks that take 2 at a time?
Yeah. Obviously, it will vary about which group you have. Wherever possible, we will social distance more. So if you've got a smaller group, it might be one person to a desk. It depends on the numbers in the class, to be fair.
We've been talking this morning about how much work there is to do practically in getting the building safe and how much to think about, and the dangers then that there might be that what happens within the classroom, which is the most important thing about the learning, becomes secondary. I can see here, though, that once the pupils enter the classroom, it's not going to be that different, is it?
Not necessarily. I think that's the point of being a teacher. You adapt to your surroundings, and a good teacher will always adapt to their surroundings and do the best they can. It's going to be quite difficult for myself because I've always been one that is constantly walking around, constantly checking, sitting with little groups to help. That will change. But then again, it's just finding another way of doing that, and that will come with practice. And the focus for us is obviously going to be teaching and learning. There's a lot to do, and also to reassure the pupils that it's all doable and we've got it in hand, and to have faith in us, even though the plans might change at any time.
Those plans, as laid out in the school's reopening document, run to 80 pages. In drawing them up, head teacher Ian Lloyd has been able to build on the experience gained from the check-in sessions that Welsh schools ran ahead of the summer holidays for individual year groups.
Our attendance ranged from, at its worst, 40% to, at its best, 60%. Many parents were very clear that they weren't ready to send their children back. And I understand that. I think it's a shame because those children that did attend saw no yellow and black tape, crime scene tape as I call it. They saw a familiar environment, smiling teachers, they had fun lessons, and I think that was useful for the children that attended in taking away some of the fear about what school might be like. We also know that we have 90 children, vulnerable children, very vulnerable children, who've been attending right through the summer. So my hope will be that for them, there is very little fear or anxiety about returning. For everyone else, the honest answer is I do not know. We don't know what we're facing, and we'll only find out when this term begins.
You don't know how many pupils are going to return?
I don't know how many pupils will return. I would deeply like to believe that we will have very good attendance, and I think the early indications from Scotland and some areas of England seem that is the case. I hope that our communication has been good with parents, and I hope that they're convinced by our strategy for keeping the building COVID secure. But until we do it, we don't know.
Morning! How are you?
2 days later, and that question of how ready pupils and parents are to return to school gets its answer, as St Teilo's welcomes students to the new academic year.
It's so good to see you.
First through the door are the newbies, the Year 7 pupils joining the school from primaries across Cardiff and beyond. For head teacher Ian Lloyd and his welcoming committee of staff, it's the moment of truth.
So this is our first cohort, Year 7, coming in this morning. Good morning, boys. Good morning, both. So we have 9 school buses that will arrive. Children will disembark. We'll take them up to the gymnasium, get them into their new classes, and then they'll be off for their induction day.
Morning! How are you? That's a man with a walk. I want that walk.
We'll have a maximum of 250 today compared to a normal day of 1,500. So a much quieter day, but we've chosen to bring each year group in one by one so that they can have a safe sound induction. We can really listen to their views, find out how they are, and then that will inform our planning going forward. We can decide where the gaps are and how best to address those.
Ladies, you've made my day. Come on, let's go in together. All right?
Soon the Year 7s are in their forms and classrooms, where they'll bubble now until COVID-19 restrictions are eased.
I
I'm going to make the final judgment. I think we're banning racism in room 101.
Helping them get to know each other while settling into their new surroundings is teacher Katrina Herridge. So how's it been for that first morning back?
Yes, strange times. It all feels very different, but it's nice because it's like a new start, I think, because everything's new and we're all in it together.
It's a challenging day anyway, isn't it? And under normal circumstances, any circumstances, your first proper day at secondary school. But have you found it particularly challenging today, or has the way that the school's set up make it easier?
Oh, definitely. I think the school have been so thorough in the procedures and what we've put in place that I think it's been really easy just to come in and just to do, our jobs. It's nice to be back. It's a bit of normality. It's nice to see their faces and, introduce ourselves.
Are you able to use the space, use the classroom as much as you would like to?
I think so. I think with teaching, you've got to adapt. We're always changing for different classes, different year groups. I think the only challenge is sometimes I find it difficult to stand at the front. But again, you just think of new ways of doing things and new strategies, especially with the year sevens. For them, this is the new normal anyway. So how we go about things, it's not as strange for them. So again, with our teaching, I think just have to go through some of the ways our normal lessons we would do and just tweak them, just to make them, just be a bit more safer while we're in the classroom. But I don't think it's going to affect the learning.
While Katrina Herridge is in the classroom, a host of colleagues are here in the corridor outside, making sure that everyone is where they should be.
My name is Rebecca Pitt, and I am the Achievement Leader for Lower School. We always have a day when it's just year sevens coming into school on the first day anyway, but then they have to get used to manoeuvring around the building and go into different classrooms. And I think this way for year sevens in particular, it means to say that the bridging between primary and secondary school is not too much of a shock because they are in one classroom, in one block, in one area that they have a bit of ownership over. So I think that actually will help transition for a lot of our youngsters as well.
Because it's a daunting day anyway, isn't it? It can be terrifying for some. How has the backdrop of COVID affected that, do you think?
I think for some they've missed out, so as well as missing out on their last few months of year six, they've also missed out. We do a lot of transition work here at St Teilo's. They have lots of opportunities to come up to the school. We come and visit them in their schools. So they have missed out on that. But what we decided to do is invite the children in during the summer holidays, so they could come in and have an opportunity to meet us, to answer any questions that they have and to sort of alleviate any worries that they had. And I think the feedback from that was really positive, that they had the opportunity to come in before starting school in September.
So we were here earlier this week. We walked down this same corridor and it was very, very quiet. How does it feel to be here now with the buzz?
Well, this is joyous, isn't it? This is joyous. This is how a school should sound. Excited children, people asking questions, people in conversation. It's absolutely fantastic. I think the school closure period has been so difficult, so distressing, so difficult to manage remotely that I am delighted that we can just crack on with things now, as they should be.
But before that, it's time for the first break of the academic year. And again, it's an example of how school life in a pandemic remains much the same, while also being very different.
We've had to create 6 picnic areas, one for each year group. So you can see looking out that we've bought a great deal of outdoor furniture and we've created this space just for year 7 to enjoy for their breaks. So at break and lunchtime, children have a choice. They can stay within their zone in their classrooms, particularly if the weather's not great. They can move outside into their designated picnic zone that we've created for them, or indeed we'll take them up under supervision to our sports facilities where they can have a bit of a run around if needed.
And presumably, as this is the first break on the first morning of these classrooms being occupied, this is the first chance you've had to see this space occupied.
That's correct. I'm glad they fit. We've got 250 11-year-olds who fit quite comfortably in this space. I'm not as convinced we'll fit 250 16-year-olds in the same space, but that's why we definitely need to rely on some of those other outdoor larger spaces as well.
There's some very happy sounds coming from this space. Let's see if some of these children want to tell us how their day has been so far.
It's good. It's very fun because there's a lot of people, so you can socialise and stuff.
And you missed your friends over the past
Definitely.
6 months?
I've only seen 2 of my friends in lockdown, but I'm happy to see him. Yeah, I'm really happy to see my best friend. I was glad that he's going to St Teilo.
We've been best friends since reception.
Were you nervous coming back with coronavirus? And, some you'll have been, I don't know if you come on the bus, but, some kids have been wearing masks.
I was really scared to come back. I was nervous about everything that could happen because high school, there's movies about high school, so all the drama happens in it. So I was really excited because I get to do writing, which is my favourite type of lesson, and I was allowed to see my friends.
How is it to be back at school? Is it good to be back?
It is, because we just started year 7, but it is a bit weird because we didn't really finish year 6 and we just moved on to year 7.
It's like we didn't have a leavers, so, and since we're here now, there's 10 times more people than there was before. This would have been our whole school basically.
Yeah.
And now it's just one whole year mixed together, so it's really weird.
Do you feel safe here?
Yeah, I do feel really safe here.
And how do you feel?
Yeah. With hand sanitizer, then yeah. No catching germs.
Okay, guys, back to your classrooms now. Pop your phones away. Good boy, well done. Right, so...
Almost a week has passed since we were last here, and we've come back now to catch up and see how things are going with the head teacher here, Ian Lloyd. And Ian, how's it been? I've seen some cases in schools close to here. Have you had any cases here?
Things are going well, and you're right. We've had a number of partial closures in other local high schools and primary schools. Luckily, no closure here yet, although I think it probably is a case of when and not if. We do have some young people that we're worried about, some young people going through testing, and you'll see here on my wall I have a very old-fashioned record-keeping system where we note down any concerns, any symptoms that have been seen. You can see that we're tracking quite a number of people at the moment, but we haven't yet got their test results, and the actions that we take are dependent on whether or not those results are positive or negative.
So I can see on there now you've got 3 staff members and 7 or 8 pupils where there have been concerns. If they have a test and they have a positive result and they've been in the school, then what happens?
Well, then we are looking at the potential of an outbreak, so we have to engage with the Test, Trace and Protect team to look at what that means.
And when you look at what's happened elsewhere, it's clear, isn't it, what would happen in those circumstances?
Oh, it's almost certain that there will be a need for partial closure. Under the current rules, if there is a positive case in school, then all of the young people who've come into contact with that positive case themselves will have to self-isolate for 14 days.
And as we were seeing last week with the Year 7s, they are all in contact with one another at break time, aren't they?
That's certainly true indeed. I mean, there can be, at full capacity, no guarantee of physical distancing in secondary schools. So we are looking in the vast majority of cases at a whole year group that will need to self-isolate, or perhaps there may be some more nuance, particularly, for example, in Key Stage 5.
So if you see it, there's an inevitability that you get a case. There's an inevitability then at some point you're going to have to take a whole year group out of school. What sort of preparation are you making for their education to continue while they're not here?
Our current plan is that we will be moving to live broadcast lessons. So we have in the background a timetable that's available to run where teachers will teach to a computer and children will be able to watch that lesson live from home, and whilst they won't be able to interact by video or by speaking, they are able to interact by posting questions back into that live broadcast for the teacher to respond to.
But those are worries for the future. Today it's the turn of Year 11 to experience a taste of normality by getting their feet back under a school desk.
I'm Iftika.
I'm Jacob.
I'm Morgan.
I'm Asan.
I'm Leah.
Aged 15 years old, these pupils are halfway through their GCSE studies. Ian Lloyd believes that of all his students, they will have suffered the most from lockdown. Not that they necessarily saw it like that when school first closed back in March.
When we were told our school was going to be off for 2 weeks, we were all so excited, weren't we? We were buzzing. And then after a while, we realised this ain't good.
Coming back to school today, that was something I looked forward to for days. And again, when lockdown first happened, we were almost all excited to have time off school. But now I think I have a real appreciation for the smaller things in life.
How do you think the school have done then? You've come back in today.
I think all the stuff they put in place is really good.
But I was looking when we were coming out of the block and everyone was just bundled together.
Yeah.
It would make no difference if the whole school was open for us because it would just be the same as it is now.
As much as it's unrealistic to ask any more from the school, I don't entirely feel 100% safe, because I do feel like some of the people that I'm like very close in the corridors could have it. But I don't think that's a problem with the school. I almost think it's just what we're going to have to get used to, and the risk that is necessary to take to get us back to our education.
The school's done what they have to do, and now it's our job to like be sensible and responsible, and like understand like surround and like just respecting other space and like their choices and like how they want to follow the rules.
So do you feel like you're the most hard done by as a group? Do you? Because the year ahead of you got their grades without doing the exams. The ones coming behind you, well, they've got an extra year for it. Do you think you're in the worst possible position?
Yeah, because this year we were meant to like practice out our exams, and like when we go in to do our exams, it's just practice for like this year now we're in, and now we just got to do it now, and we don't know how the exams are going to work or anything.
I think it's
so
what's worse is we don't know what's going to happen. Like, we're just so unsure.
We could put all our efforts in now in the next few months. We're going home, doing work, preparing for the exams. All the teachers telling us this is what we need to do to be able to take the exam and like do well. But all of that could just be stopped by the Prime Minister or anyone saying you've got to go back into lockdown.
I think the now Year 11s and the now Year 13s are like, they were put on the back burner because the people that just got their results are into Year 12 now. They've got a new fresh start because they've started their A-levels and doing like completely different subjects and new start. But us, it's like, it's 100% this now, and like we can't rely on what we did like a year ago, a couple months ago. It's all like what you do now and like the work and effort you put in a few months.
And it's not just the Year 11s who are feeling unsure about what's to come. With just one more day to go before the whole school, some 1,500 pupils and staff come together for the first time in 6 months. Head teacher Ian Lloyd is also feeling the strain.
I feel exceptionally nervous. This will be the 16th time I've started a school year here, and I haven't quite felt this out of control before. Yet we are where we are, and we have to just allow it to happen. My hope will be that we have in effect created 6 schools within a school, and the children have now been inducted and rehearsed, so hopefully things will go well.
It's the first night nerves, isn't it, I suppose? That's what you've rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed, but nothing prepares you really for going live.
That's entirely right. Nothing has quite prepared me for a start of term like this. But I have complete faith in our teaching staff, and you'll have had a sense in your time here for how pragmatic and positive they are as a group of people, and I'm eminently confident that they will make this work.
We've been with you for a couple of weeks now. You've been positive. You've been full of energy throughout. But I've heard more and more from you and from others about how much work you've been doing, and it's gone on all summer, and it continues. How are you feeling now?
I'm absolutely exhausted. I'm exhausted, but, this has been a difficult time for everyone, and I don't mind working long hours and not having days off and not taking holidays. And however difficult this may have been for me, I'm minded that it's been exceptionally difficult for the children, and it's their interests that I serve ultimately. So, I'm fine. You have to just put on a smile and crack on.
It's almost a week since I was last in St Teilo's. Then it was relatively quiet, with just one year group in at a time. Now the whole school is back in, with pupils knuckling down to 6 lessons a day. Attendance is over 90%, close to what Ian Lloyd would expect in normal times. But his slowly expanding COVID-19 wall chart tells a tale of a small but growing number of absent pupils.
We have 37 young people who are currently awaiting either a test or a test result. Of those, only 4 have had positive results, but luckily for us, hadn't been to school already. So they haven't been in the building and therefore haven't presented any risk in terms of transmission. So actually, across a population of 1,500, that is still quite a small number.
So you haven't yet had the worst case scenario, have you?
Thankfully not. I am fastidiously tracking every sniff, cough, sneeze, temperature. It is taking up a lot of our time. But what it does allow us to do is to be very confident that the school is safe, very confident that should somebody test positive for COVID-19, we know very, very clearly where they have been, who they've been in contact with. So that tracking process is burdensome but quite necessary. And luckily, at this point in time, it is reassuringly positive.
While Ian Lloyd remains resolutely upbeat, he knows that not everyone feels the same way and that there are staff who are struggling with being in the classroom at a time of coronavirus.
Teachers feel abandoned and unprotected. I have had a lot of conversations this week with some very experienced professionals who will cry, who will say that they're thinking about taking early retirement, who are considering going and speaking to their GPs because they can't sleep at night. Most of them aren't worried for themselves, but worried for other people, partners, parents, family members who perhaps are more vulnerable. And they stand in a room, unprotected, with 32 children, 6 times a day, and they get on with it. But they're not happy doing it.
It's 3 o'clock, the end of another day at St Teilo's, and the pupils are flooding out into the afternoon sun to head homewards, all under the watchful eye of their head teacher. COVID-19 has brought Ian Lloyd, his staff and students many challenges over the past few months. Most recently, the local lockdowns in South Wales, and there will inevitably be many more challenges ahead. But for now, the school gates remain open for all, and with another day of education successfully delivered, Ian Lloyd can afford a moment of reflection. See you, bye ladies. It's the end of the school day then, and a lot of smiling faces. Is this what makes it all worthwhile at the end of the day?
Yes, absolutely. They're fine. Look at them. They've had a good day learning. Just as pleased to go home, I think, as to arrive home.
Do you feel a great sense of responsibility, even more so at the moment than about all these lives in your hands in every sense?
I'm very invested in the lives of these children. Perhaps this has amplified that feeling of responsibility, but really it's no different. I've fought for the children of this school my whole career, and I'm going to keep doing that. I think at the moment, of course, what it does do is it really reinforces the importance of looking after people's well-being. And I think it's great that schools like mine, which have spoken about this for many years, are now having the public catch up with our thinking, because people have realised that we have to look after the emotional health and well-being of children. If we want to engage their brain, we have to engage their heart.